Hi, welcome to Simple Nourished Living's podcast. I'm Martha McKinnon, and this is my brother and partner, Peter.
Hello.
Hi, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Are you having a good day?
I am, and I just wanted to mention before we get too into it, this is podcast number 4.
Yeah, I think that's an accomplishment. We're showing our stick-to-itiveness.
Yeah. Gotta just keep doing it, and
Right?
it'll hopefully get easier.
Right. We're hoping it's going to get easier. We'll find a flow. But until then, we'll just keep plodding along. It's what we do.
Sounds good.
So, what's going well in your world?
Oh, what's
What's the,
going well?
or
Well, I've
what?
been doing some experimenting with air fryer baking.
Okay.
And
How's
I
that
just was
going?
doing, it was interesting. So I did a small batch of cookies this morning, and I think it's something worth talking about on the website. But they looked good, but they kind of didn't really cook all the way through in the middle.
Ah.
I think with the air circulating around and the outside looked really good, and the toothpick test they looked done,
Mm-hmm.
but then they kind of weren't. So
Oh,
then I did a second batch in the toaster oven, and they looked totally different on the outside. They puffed up, they looked really good, and they cooked all the way through. So I haven't done a taste test yet, but I'll do that this
so maybe
afternoon, and
maybe the toaster oven's a better way to go with some baking.
it may be.
Yeah. Or maybe
So it's
like the
fun.
temperature has to go lower.
That's
I'm
true.
just thinking
And
that, because the air fryer
and
will cook, faster and you've got that circulating air, that convection effect. So maybe
right
lowering the
in my
temperature.
in my particular air fryer, the Kosori Turbo Blaze has different cooking modes. So it
Okay.
has the air fry mode, it has a bake mode, it has a I'm not even sure all the modes, but
Okay.
and I think different modes the air or the fan runs at different levels,
Okay. That makes sense.
but I have to go back through and reread the manual. Yeah, so it's fun experimenting because cook a small batch of cookies for like 5 or 6 minutes. That's a win-win.
Cool. And I'm excited because I actually have my dinner in the slow cooker. So I'm having
Really?
yeah, I've got a
You're,
minestrone soup going.
ooh, very good.
So I feel really good about that because it makes dinner time so much easier.
Traditional minestrone, or did you do anything
Yeah, well, just it was
different
funny
to it?
because I just feel like these days whatever I'm kind of looking for just sort of comes into my world. So I think it was an email from Steph O'Day. I get her slow living email, and she had one of her minestrone soups there. So I basically followed that with some tweaks based on what I had. Added in just a few more veg because I happen to have it. So yeah,
Hmm.
just you add some pasta at the end in the
At
last
the end.
minutes. Yeah,
Hmm.
to just add a little pasta to the veg and broth. So
Well,
that's
that's
cool.
always a good thing to know. You don't have to think about dinner at
Right,
5 o'clock.
right. Because time can get away from me.
Absolutely.
It's like the computer. The work here can draw me in. So all right. So today's topic is dealing with nighttime cravings. Do you ever get cravings for food?
I do. Usually, it's something sweet or
Mm-hmm.
sometimes salty because I
Mm-hmm.
exercising a lot, or if I'm playing a lot of pickleball during the day, if I'm sweating a lot, I tend to crave sometimes salty
Yeah.
things.
And
Yeah,
that's, I mean, that's your body telling you you probably need some salt, right? Because you're playing a lot of pickleball every day.
a lot during the week. Yeah,
Okay.
for sure.
Yeah, so nighttime cravings is something that comes up for a lot of folks, and I've had a lot of readers write in asking, and in fact, we do have a post out on Simple Nourished Living's website, so we will link to that in the show notes because it does include some really specific recipe, like sort of healthy recipes that lighter recipes that people have come up with to satisfy the cravings, and we probably won't go into real specific detail on that. So if people want to look and get more ideas, that post is there. But do you have any thoughts about how do you deal with your cravings when they come up?
How do I deal with my I usually, how do I do it?
Do you usually satisfy them? I mean, because I guess it depends on how much you have cravings, and have you figured out how to like satisfy them? Do you feel like they're overwhelming sometimes?
Yeah, sometimes I absolutely try to meet the craving. Sometimes if it's late, and I just want to go to bed, I'll just have a spoonful of Greek yogurt or something just to sort of get something. Because I really like yogurt or cottage cheese or something like that, which sounds kind of weird, but and sometimes I will have a little piece of dark chocolate, or also like a spoonful of nut butter,
Oh, okay.
which kind of meets that sweet yet savory, salty kind of craving.
Right. So I guess the bottom line is that there's no one way to satisfy the craving or to deal with it.
Right.
It's
Right.
like an individual exploration to figure out like what works, what doesn't work. And some people, have through the years figured out what works. And again, they've shared some of those ideas on the post. And it's sometimes just trial and error, right? To figure things out. So I guess the first thing you have to consider is it something you're wanting to satisfy somehow, or are you wanting to just figure out how to distract yourself or how to figure out like other approaches to it? Because the one question might be, is it real? Am I really hungry? Did I not nourish myself enough during the day? So is it a real need for food, right? And that you would solve differently than you might just this. What is that saying you have about your mouth is lonely? What's that quote you have?
Oh, let me see if I could find it really quick.
It's kind of a cute little.
Yeah, it's a Japanese word, which I know when I find it, I'm gonna butcher it.
Oh, I don't know how many Japanese listeners we have.
It begins with a K. Let's see, it should be real time. Here it is. Kuchisabishi.
Okay.
And it's a Japanese word allegedly meaning when you're not hungry, but you eat because your mouth is lonely.
There it is. So sometimes your mouth is lonely, right? So that kind of craving, like, are we talking about real craving? Are we talking about your mouth is lonely? You're just, you feel like you want something. Maybe it's a habit, a long ingrained habit where you've just, you're used to turning on the television and, bringing in the box of Oreos with you, and you've just done it for years. I know when we were growing up, oftentimes Dad would just go for ice cream every evening, like every night. It was just after dinner, a big bowl of ice cream while they watched TV. And when you're hanging out with them, you tended to, so that can be part of it. It's just a habit, but it can be hard to break, right? Because you're kind of used to it. So ideas for when you're wanting to, so again, you can satisfy the craving, right? That's one option. And you said you found ways with maybe a little bit of dark chocolate or a little bit of nut butter, just like to takes away that peckishness or that need to have something savory or sweet. I found the same thing. Like sometimes just I sort of end the night with just like a spoonful of Ben and Jerry's, just a spoonful, and it does
Yeah.
it, or a little piece of chocolate can be great. If
I've
that's
also
enough.
found, being a yogurt lover, I've also found I'm not a big ice cream person, but I do like the occasional spoonful. But I like to do like half ice cream, half yogurt, actually. So I feel like I could meet that craving in a little bit healthier way because it doesn't have to be all ice cream.
Right. Right. So there's lots of ways to satisfy it. Brenda, I know she started an herb, and I've done this at times too in the colder months, is to have a cup of hot herb tea. And it's just something can be really satisfying about that. It's just sometimes you just want, I don't know, you want something in your mouth. You want to sip something while you're watching TV or reading. And so herb tea is something that has come up with a lot of our readers. And I know that's something Brenda, our sister, has found works really well for her. So those are all options. You mentioned yogurt. One suggestion that comes up a lot is, just making yourself your own frozen yogurt with frozen fruit and yogurt and stevia or your sweetener of choice and blending it together. And that could be a really a way to go. But again, and there's no right or wrong. I mean, people have talked about having a hard-boiled egg. Another thing is that sometimes we're thirsty, right? We think we're hungry, but we're really thirsty. So some people play with, and maybe that's why the herb tea sometimes works for people. But have a glass of water, have a cup of tea, and tell yourself, well, in 20 minutes, if I'm still craving something, then so that delayed gratification, then I'll do something about it 20 minutes from now instead of doing it immediately.
Looking through that post just to try to refresh. So one other suggestion is to brush your teeth right after dinner.
Right, which I think is a good one too. So that's going to really delay, it's like if you've gone to the trouble, if you brush and floss, right, and you get all that done, it's like, am I really going to eat this cookie when I'm going to have to go brush and floss again? If you're lazy, you might not. I know some people have just declared the kitchen closed after dinner. They just kind of in their mind, they shut the lights off, it's closed, and they leave the kitchen, and it's like there's sort of like a do not enter sign that they imagine in their minds. It's like the kitchen's closed until tomorrow. And so that's something that some people have had success with. Distraction. A lot of people say it's just like, giving yourself a manicure, keeping your hands occupied, because it's really hard to be eating, chips when you're trying to dry your nails.
Right. Well, and it's going to occupy your mind, so you're not going to be thinking about it. You could play solitaire.
Right.
You
can be reading
knit.
a book. Yeah. So all those distractions, right? Some people will be exercising during the commercial. So there's all kinds of things you can do to just mix it up and get yourself out of your normal routine and distract yourself. A really cool thing that's come up for me recently, because I'm really sort of focusing on and spending quite a bit of time in this whole concept of mindfulness and meditation, is a technique called surfing. It's a sort of a mindfulness technique for what's called surfing the urge or surfing the craving, which is really successful for a lot of people too. Or it's like you feel that urge come on and you kind of just tune into it. Instead of trying to run away from it or distract yourself, you actually turn towards it. And because most cravings are just described as having kind of a wave-like pattern, in that the urge kind of comes and then it comes in, it gets stronger, it kind of peaks, and then it just backs off. And so that cravings have the same kind of pattern as a wave on the ocean, and that by using that mindfulness technique, and anybody who's done meditation or yoga can kind of relate to just paying attention and sort of noticing, ooh, and talking through it and say, oh, I'm thinking about Oreos right now, ooh, my mind is really telling me I want an Oreo, and just kind of feeling it and breathing, relaxing, noticing, and tuning into what's happening in your body. Because there will be sensations that come up, it's like, where am I feeling this? Am I feeling it? Am I getting warm? Am I starting to salivate? And just kind of pay attention. Sort of ride it through. And so that can be a fun thing. And that's another thing we can link to in the show notes. Jeff Warren is a pretty famous meditation teacher who I've been following, and he has a really good guided meditation that takes you through that process. And it goes really fast, like 4 or 5 minutes. So we'll link to those notes too. So that's another thing that people can consider.
Now, I know you're not a doctor, and we're not
Right.
giving medical advice, and this is all based on our experience, and it's for educational purposes only. But I wanted to ask you, because I guess I've never really thought about this before, but is a craving, is it created in the mind, or is it an actual body? Is it an actual, what am I trying to say? Is it an actual physical?
I don't know. And that's kind of interesting, because I'm really fascinated by, and I spend a lot of time in the whole the world of the mind body and the mind body connection. And I've read a lot, and I continue to read and learn. And I think there's probably from what I understand. And again, I'm just a regular person who happens to have a real interest around this with no credentials at all, and just put that out there. And so whatever I say, please go check it out and substantiate it out. Do your own
and consult
research.
Your own
consult your
doctors.
own. Yeah, for sure. But I think it's blurred, and I think our understanding is continuing to shift in terms of the mind body. And I read a book recently from a pretty well-renowned researcher, and it was called the mind body, because she believes you can't really even separate mind from body anymore because they're so interrelated. So it's sort of like the chicken and the egg, which comes first. Body can affect mind can affect body, and it's getting blurred. And our next episode is going to sort of really explore that a little bit, because our next episode, we're going to talk about this milkshake experiment, which is, oh
Right.
my gosh, it just gives me the goosebumps when you really think about the implications of that. So I'm not sure, like, if my guess is, because, but this is just a guess, is that it is sort of mind driven. But again, yeah, and hormonal, body mind, is the mind causing the hormones to cause that sort of those, because there are hunger hormones. There is a hunger hormone called ghrelin that you can measure in your blood that will go up, which does cause hunger. And it's very complicated with your nervous
Right.
system and your endocrine system and digestive system. So I'm not sure. It probably depends on who you talk to and where their area of expertise is, what they would tell you in terms of where it starts.
It just made me think when I mentioned earlier about craving salt. It's almost not even a craving. It's your body saying I need this
Right.
nutrient or this.
Right. So that's
Um,
really interesting. So, I mean, it can be, and there's a lot of, I mean, I took a course years ago. It was a year-long course, online course at the Institute of Integrative Nutrition, and we explored a lot of aspects of nutrition in that course. And one of this man's theories was that part of our problem with, weight gain was the fact that we had become, because our diets were so nutrient depleted, that sometimes he felt as
hmm,
though we were eating food, but we were sort of overfed but undernourished. And that he felt as though
hmm,
those, if your body's needing something like salt or a particular mineral or something, that it's going to maybe send these hunger signals to try to get you to give it what it needs. And then you have your mind, right? Who, I think we all sort of know differences between maybe physical hunger and sort of just those emotional cravings. So we often will eat when we're not hungry
hmm,
because we're
hmm.
bored, because we're nervous, because we're excited, because we're happy, because we're sad. I mean, as sort of a comfort. So it gets complicated, and so you really got to
Right.
just figure out what works for you. And again, depending upon what kind of craving you're having, right? If you're truly depleted in salt because you've been exercising a lot and sweating, that's very different than, you've just finished this really wonderful dinner, and like 20 minutes later, you want a big bowl of ice cream just because you want it, because that's what you did as a kid. It's almost like
Hmm.
those are two way different things.
Right. And you had written a post or two a little bit ago about a TV show or documentary from the UK about secret eaters.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, because I have not watched any of those episodes. I'm just wondering if nighttime eating or snacking was that, because I could
Oh, yeah.
imagine you're sneaking around, you don't want anyone to know, and
Right.
it's sort of a
Yeah, you're like hiding it.
hiding it. Yeah.
Yeah. So people, I mean, in a secret, I mean, it's a very interesting show. If you can catch a few episodes out in YouTube. And it's very interesting because what it does for me, again, we've talked in previous episodes here about mindless eating. So in my mind, it's almost like the movie version now of mindless eating, where it's just exploring and showing a lot of the ways that people overeat without them even
Mm.
realizing it. In addition to kind of like, sneaking around, they're also just eating more than they realize because they're oblivious to all of those influences, in terms of plate size and, the lighting at the restaurant and all those things that can affect us. So,
I'm curious about readers and their possible ideas or techniques
absolutely.
or strategies that you found that works for you.
Right. So
Um,
please, that would be wonderful if you would share in the comments below ideas that you have around this, and techniques, strategies that you found that really work for you. That would be wonderful.
Very good.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care. We'll see you soon.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.